Happy Thursday, everyone, and welcome to episode 19 of Live on LinkedIn with special guest John Lees. Hope you guys have had an awesome week, no matter where you are. It's been another great week here in Australia, and looking forward to this week's show. The topic is what is the topic? Well, we're going to bring John straight in and introduce the topic for today's show. I don't want to ruin any surprises, but I'm going to drop one surprise on you. We've got a little clip at the end which you guys are all going to like. So I'm just going to bring John straight into the broadcast today. How are you from California in the United States, John?
Yeah, we're okay, thank you. The weather's changing slightly, but, thank God for that. And it's been a warm day today. Started off cool, but it's nice, and everything's fine, thank you. Glad everything's okay in Australia, and hello to everyone in Australia, and hope you enjoy the session.
Okay, so it's about selling business success. And at the end of it, we've got a special little clip. So I just want a bit of housekeeping at the start. Please bear with me when we get to that part, because it's the first time I'm going to use a different way to play a clip, which you will all really, really like. But looking forward to the session, John, and what we're going to share again with our viewers. And as always, guys, jump in the comments, use the comments section as a way to network, introduce yourself to new people. Right in there watching, we'd love to hear where you're watching from. We've had viewers from all around the world, Brazil, Europe, Asia, the UK. We really appreciate everyone who takes time to watch the show. But I am going to hand it over to you, John, and get cracking into today's show. And really looking forward to this episode, as always, every Thursday.
Terrific. Thank you very much, Simon. And 19 sessions, boy, oh boy. And we've got hopefully quite a few more to come. So Simon was the originator of all of this, and it's been very good for me, because it's enabled me to look deeply into the areas that I've been writing about and speaking about for some time, and some of which have not really applied here in America, but it's been very helpful for me. So I want to say thank you to Simon. And if I look a little down today, there is a reason for it. Where we live in Northern California, in a place called Lincoln, I occasionally see people walking their dogs. I walk my dog, and so forth and so on. And there's one particular guy called Don, and I make him laugh. I tell him a few jokes, and we talk about things of the past and whatever. And I see his wife occasionally as well, but mostly Don with his dog, lovely dog. And I saw his wife 2 days ago walking the dog, and I said to her, how are you? And she said, I'm not too good at the moment. I said, why? She said, well, unfortunately, Don is very sick. I said, what happened? She said, well, there's all sorts of complications, but at the moment he's on life support. I said, oh, don't tell me that. She said, yeah. I said, I am so sorry. And I was sorry, because he's such a nice guy. And I said, well, please give him my best wishes. I hope he's going to be okay. Are you able to talk to him? She said, yes, absolutely. She said, and you can talk to him too, if you like. I'm sure he'd love to see you and hear some jokes and just have a general chat with you. I said, but you said he's on life support. Can he do that? She said, oh, yes, yeah, of course he can. I mean, the people there have him under control as far as life support's concerned, but he can still, have a chat with people and what have you. And I said, oh. She said, so if you wouldn't mind, I think it would be really something he would enjoy. And I said, okay, a strange feeling going to see someone on life support. But anyway, she gave me the details. I went along, spoke to the nurses there, and they introduced me into the room, and I said hello to Don, and he said hello to me. He didn't seem good, but he didn't seem overly bad at that point. And before I could really get into any conversation with him, he said to me, John, I wonder if I could ask a very special favor of you. I said, well, if I can help, I will. He said, would you mind switching it off? I said, Don, what are you talking about? Switch it off? There's no way in the world I would want to switch it off. He said, well, I'm asking you to, please. Please, it's something I'm asking you to do, and I'm begging you to do. Please switch it off. And we argued back and forth for a couple of minutes. The thought of, switching off the life support was awful. And he said, just please do it. And he was so strong in his feelings. I got the impression that he must be in a lot of pain, a lot of discomfort and what have you. So anyway, I'm not proud of this, but I did switch it off. And it was only about a minute later that he had his last breath and passed away. So yeah, and what made it worse was that I then realized he'd been watching television. And that's what he was referring to. So I suppose you could say that I'm guilty of murder in one sense, but I hope that's not the case. I didn't tell anyone. I just said he seems to be asleep. And then I got out of the place as quick as I could. So, yeah, I was a little bit down on the whole thing. But these things do happen. You know, they do happen. Now, let's get started. Key lessons in business success. So here's the first question. Because these mainly are questions or points of interest that I've picked up over the years. And really the challenge is for you to do some thinking about them and to take some action. And if you want my help, more than happy to help you with ideas, etc. The first one is, are your team members submerging, merging, or emerging? So let me give you a picture of what I'm talking about. So here we have 3 lines. So here's the start, and here's the end of a life. Start, end, start, end. And, you know, life, you know, when you get started can be difficult and so forth and so on, but you've got your parents who bestow love on you and help you in any way they can, along with friends and teachers and what have you. But then at a certain point, you know, you've got to start looking after yourself and what have you. And unfortunately, these people here, and I'm not suggesting they intend to do this, but they begin to submerge. So that's what I mean by submerging. Everything started off in a wonderful way, and then it gets sour, and eventually they get to the point where they retire. And after that, it's all downhill even further. So make absolutely sure that you don't have staff that are submerging, people who haven't got the level of interest or commitment to do what needs to be done. Your customers deserve the very best that you can do when you send out people to talk to them, or on the phone, doesn't matter, by email, making calls, whatever the case may be. Make absolutely sure they're not submerging. And then we have people who are merging. People who, you know, life was good when they got started and they just simply don't add to their vocabulary, so to speak. They don't get better. They stay in this sort of situation. They go along. Today will be the same as tomorrow. Tomorrow and today will be the same as yesterday. They do not grow. They don't develop. And your customers, I was saying, deserve for your salespeople to be emerging. So emerging is this one here, where again, we start off life in the most wonderful way, can't do anything wrong. Everybody's trying to help us. And in this particular case here, these people learn how to help themselves. This is the emerging salesperson. And we have to let our people know. We have to use this kind of sketch to let them know we need you to be here. In any way you can, we'll help you all the way. We'll give you books and so forth and so on. I've told you before, all of my books are available in PDF. It would be nice, I think, for any manager to be able to say to sales staff, I've got some books for you. I'm going to give you one at a time, and I'm going to use them as the basis for having brief chats when we have meetings and so forth and so on. But that's helping them to emerge, to learn how to get better, not to look at their work as something that isn't interesting. And so forth. It must be interesting. And the only customers, the only people they're interested in are emerging people. Even though they wouldn't use this language, I'm using this language with you, is that we've got to make absolutely sure we do not have people who are in this mode or this mode, which is very basic, ordinary, predictable. This mode here means you've got people who just keep on getting better. And if your stories keep getting better, then you need someone to tell those stories who in turn is getting better. So make sure you've got staff that are emerging, not merging, or submerging. Okay? Give that some thought. If you want to ask me any questions about it, what can I do about it? I mean, for instance, in cases like this, the main thing is to rid the company of such people, not only because they're submerging, but because they will have a toxic effect on other staff. And I'm sure you know that. Okay. So ask questions at any time, and I'll help you with it. I've been through all this many times before. Okay. So let's have a look at point number 2. Many a manager has heard sales staff say, when they've been talking about going to market and trying to get customers to move in a certain direction, a direction that the company wants to help them with, you will hear salespeople say, you know something, you can take a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. And that's like an excuse. So what we have to understand is that you can make a horse have the water, providing you put some salt in its oats. That's the whole idea, okay? And that's a key part of what selling is all about. Okay, so just to help you with this, in terms of what salt means in this case, hope you can see this. Number 1 is teach salespeople to be sensitive to the status quo. So that when they go to see someone, the first thing that they mention is, I am not here to challenge anything that you're currently doing with one or more suppliers. I assume they're doing a good job, and I'm not here to talk about that. I hope my customers are not doing that to us while I'm here with you. Okay? So I assume everything. So nothing I have to say will interfere with your current situation. So that's just being sensitive to the. Most people don't do that. They come in, hi, I'm so-and-so, and our company started now back in 1995, and well, nobody cares. They're not interested because the only company and product they're interested in is theirs, not yours, which is understandable. Okay, next. What we have to understand next is achievement. This pen's running out, you know, just. Achievement. So when a salesperson has gone through this process of recognizing the status quo, which by the way is extraordinary, you will find less than 5% of salespeople will not go through this stage. They just want to get started. And when they get started, it doesn't have anything to do with achievement. It has everything to do with who we are, what we do, our products, and so forth and so on. So the second thing we have to do after having acknowledged the status quo and making it clear that we're not attacking it, is to say, look, I'm here to talk to you about the possibility of an achievement that I hope you will find to be of interest. And then you nominate what that achievement level is based on other customers that are of a similar size to the one that you're talking about. Okay, there's no point telling them about someone who's doing well if they're 10 times bigger than the guy you're talking to. So very important that you're able to identify a level of achievement that you believe is able to be achieved and something that people can look forward to. Okay, so that's the second one here. Write it down, put it in front of the customer, and then begin to lead discussion. Which is to talk about a plan, to talk about managing the plan, to talk about a test, etc., that you believe will work, which leads us into the last point, which is testing. So it's always very helpful to someone who's listening to a good story that starts with acceptance of the current situation, the possibility of organizing an achievement that will be very meaningful to the people you're talking about. Okay, and then we talk about leading the discussion. Okay, how do we ensure that the achievement that we've talked about is going to happen, because we have a plan for it, and you show them the details of the plan, 4 or 5 steps. How we manage the plan, we don't just leave you to it and then come back on the next call and say, how did everything go? Because maybe it didn't go so well if you weren't around to help them with it. I'm not suggesting you leave it all to the customer, and I'm not suggesting you leave it all to yourself. This is a team game when you work with customers. And then to be able to say, and I'm not suggesting that we just go ahead and do it, because that puts at risk their current supply situations. So that's when we talk about the test, and then we give an example of what we mean by a test for 1 quarter, for 1 month, whatever applies in your particular case. And if I was the customer, I would be very, very happy with that. It's never ever happened to me, ever. No one's ever come to me and showed any interest in my current situation. They just immediately start talking about their company and what have you. It drives me nuts. And I learn from the whole thing. I'm making notes, and they think I'm making notes about what they're talking about. I'm making notes on a new newsletter or a new book or whatever it happens to be, because I can't believe these people have been set free to tell their own story. So it's not really their fault. Management has to provide salespeople with an interesting story. Okay, and in order to have this kind of information here, you need to have success stories, which we've talked about in previous sessions before. Look for, study success stories in your customer base. People who've achieved excellent results, people who had great motivation, and people who had very good strategies, some of which came from you, some of which came from them. And that's what you're selling. You're selling a success story. Okay? So, very important that we understand the SALT factor is you can take a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. Well, you can if you put some salt in it, folks. And customers are exactly the same. Our SALT factor is being sensitive to the current situation. Focus on achievement immediately. Okay, don't worry about whether you achieve it or not. You may achieve more or slightly less. The point is that's what you're aiming for. And then talk to them about how you can make sure that achievement is actually going to be made to happen, and you're not going to do it by crossing your fingers and hoping for the best. You're going to actually run a test on it, which people feel very happy about. I mean, they've still got to buy product. You can't not charge them for it and what have you, but at least they've still got their current suppliers on hand. If you do this correctly, they will be more than happy to say goodbye to their current supplier. Not to be rude, but to be simply to say, look, we've got someone else working with us at the moment, which I won't go into detail with, blah, blah, blah. So don't forget the SALT factor. Next. Really, what I was just saying then is what I'm going to repeat now, but from a different point of view. All sales calls should start with fascination, which is really something very interesting to them. And part of that interest is recognizing the status quo, coming up with an achievement, and then end with facilitation. In other words, help them to make a decision and to go forward, in which in this case is the test, the pilot run, whatever you want to call it. Okay, so start with fascination, end with facilitation, and believe me, in most cases, it doesn't for most salespeople. They need to be sold on this kind of thing and also shown how to do it. Next, salespeople should not have to get out in order to get on. So I take this pretty seriously. I took it seriously for the salespeople that used to work for us. I wanted them to be successful in their own right, which of course meant that they had to be emerging people, growing people. And growing people deserve to be treated and rewarded in the right way. You're not going to get people who are merging and submerging who are going to do more for you. They won't do it, I can assure you of that now. And maybe you've got the wrong people. We've all made that mistake. So what I mean by salespeople should not have to get out to get on. Usually to get on means that a person is selected at some point down the line after a couple of years, 5 years, 10 years, to be at a higher level, a higher form of a job, like a manager or sub-manager or whatever it happens to be. And as a result of being able to be promoted, they earn more. There's that many jobs around that involve that kind of thing. So what we have to do is say all of our salespeople have the opportunity to get on, because we're going to give them rewards, and the rewards will be carefully thought out, okay? Because we don't want our salespeople going out and hitting the customers as hard as they can in order to get what they want. They have to start, as always, with what the customer achieves and the company, and then third, for themselves. So very important that the only way for them to get on is for us to create an incentive scheme that is going to be helpful to the salespeople, and it's something that they have to learn to reach. So for instance, you've got regular targets, regular levels of expectation, then you introduce the reward targets, and that might be for, say, 1 or 2 months, 3 months, quarter. And then you have the 6-month target. And each of those are something like 30%, up to 50% more than their normal target would be. And don't go thinking they can't get it. Believe me, you'll have to move out of the way to let them get going. Because the moment they see this kind of opportunity, it has nothing to do with greed. Nothing. We can't allow that to happen anyway. It's got everything to do with need. You know, our salespeople are individuals. They're part of families. They have mortgages, all sorts of commitments and so forth. And we've got to help them to be successful in their own right. And they shouldn't have to wait until one day, maybe, someone appoints them to a higher level. That is absolute nonsense. So if I were me, I would tell the salespeople, if you want to get on, then you're going to have to learn how to get your higher targets. And you can't do that by punishing the customers. Okay, you've got to get them on the basis of making sure the customer gets what they need, we get what we need as a company, and that you get what you need. And we start training them to learn how to do this, because to step up from a regular target to one that's 30 or 50% more takes some doing, but it has to happen. It happened to me when I was only 21, and I found a way to do it. And so just remember that, please. Salespeople should not have to get out in order to get on. Next. Thank you, Simon. A very, very important point. You're about to go to market with something new, something interesting. And the question then is, have your team bought what it is they have to sell? Now, just telling them about it, just going through the detail of it, and getting stuff from marketing and product management people, and that's not going to help at all. Okay, they have to believe that what they're about to sell is welcome and helpful and different as far as customers are concerned. That's why I believe that when you're going to go to market with something new and interesting, that you should hold a meeting, and it could be one of those meetings where you connect with everyone, a digital sort of meeting. And it doesn't matter what the meeting is, especially with COVID around, it's important to be able to involve maybe 2 or 3 customers as well, and get their point of view on what it is that you're talking about with this this new initiative. Okay, because if the salespeople hear the customers say, "Great, good idea, that's going to work. When's that going to happen?" and that's the language they use. When's this going to happen? Then they know that they're on a winner. So and I'm not talking about the fact that they buy what they have to sell simply by listening to a customer. They often have to buy it by understanding how to deliver the message. How do I deliver the message? How do I enable customers, help customers to make decisions to buy what we would like them to have in order to strengthen their business and so forth and so on. Okay, so if you haven't bought what you're trying to sell, you've got a serious problem. And most salespeople haven't. They become apologetic. They get 10 out of 10 for being tentative. saying things like, okay, so, we've got a new initiative happening. I was just wondering if you've got time to hear about it. And the customer doesn't even know what you're talking about, or the prospect. They don't even know what you're talking about. So it's easy for them to say, not just now, but, soon down the track, definitely would be grateful. And because they don't want to upset anybody and they don't want to have an argument. Okay, so to buy what it is that you have to sell means that you can't wait to tell people about your news. Okay, you actually feel sorry for people who don't have this latest offering from your company. Okay, and don't bully them around, but simply take the opportunity to tell them about it and let them get that idea into their head to the point whereby they feel like it's going to be a really good idea for them. Remembering, if it's a prospect or a customer and they're going into something new, don't forget the test factor. Next. So really, this is just connected to what I've just been talking about. Never rehearse on opening night. And I use that phrase because in the theatre, of course, as you would well know, the last thing they would ever do is rehearse on opening night. They rehearse and they rehearse and they rehearse away from the market, away from the people they want to influence, until not just that they get it right, but they can't get it wrong. They want to do it and they can be relaxed while they're doing it. Very, very important. Now, honestly, I can tell you most companies don't do this. They tell the reps something, they read it out to them, they give them pieces of paper, and they expect that the reps will be captivated by this. Well, they're not. Okay, they're not, and neither will the market be captivated by it. So if you want real salespeople, then you've got to give them the opportunity to learn how to get their message across. Very, very important. There's some very simple things in life that you can do. Like, for instance, if you've got a friend and the friend wants to tell you a joke and they make a complete mess of it, it's completely forgivable. They're a friend of yours. What's there to get mad about? You wouldn't get mad about it. But if you've got a salesperson and you go through the same process of giving them something to say and they don't quite know how to say it because they haven't done it very well. I can remember a manager. He was the national sales manager of a company. And we went through all this kind of thing in a discussion. And he was taking notes, asking questions, taking more notes. And eventually he said, okay, well, John, I'm seeing some of these prospects tomorrow, about 10 of them altogether in a meeting. And this is the message I want to get across to them. And I said, well, good luck. If you want to go through more of it, just let me know. And he said, well, look, I'll ring you in the morning just before I see them, just to make sure I'm, fresh and ready. I said, that's fine. So he rang me in the morning and I said, okay. And I asked him some questions and he went through it and he looked at his notes and he said, well, John, let's just hope, that I get it right. And that night I rang him and I said, how did the meeting go? He said it was a disaster. What do you mean? He said, I completely forgot what I was supposed to do. So I just went back to doing what I normally do, back to my normal story, which is considerably weak compared to the one that we talked about yesterday. Now, that's not because he's an idiot. He didn't rehearse sufficiently. He didn't get it to the point where it was in his head. He didn't need to worry about it. Or if there's an interruption, a call in the middle of a phone call in the middle of the visit and so forth, go ahead, no problem. You know exactly where you're up to and what have you. So be careful. Never rehearse on opening night. Next. This is just a reminder, which you might want to make a note of, that prospects need you for tomorrow's business, not today's business. And this is a message that we have to get through to salespeople, which simply backs up, which looks at what we've been talking about from a slightly different angle. Why didn't they call us? Because they don't know anything about it. If they knew about it, then they'd be interested, but they don't know about it. So we've got to be the people that tell them about this area of opportunity for tomorrow onwards, okay? We're not trying to get into introducing our idea into their current situation, their current sales situation, their current supplier situation, and what have you. So prospects need you for tomorrow's business, not today's business. These are simply lines of thought that you can pass on to your staff and discuss with your staff so that they get it in their head that, okay, I'm a futuristic salesperson. I'm not going there for an invasion. Okay, the last point, products. cost money. Ideas make money. So sell success stories. Make sure you go looking for success stories. This is absolutely normal. For instance, in the COVID-19 era that we're in, which we hope we won't be in for too much longer, there's all sorts of vaccines and different things going on. And, you know, anyone who comes up with anything successful, the first thing that happens is that they pass it on. Okay? So the question for me to you is, how many success stories do you have? Because if you've got success stories, you're on a winner. You can go out to see people and say, oh, I'm not talking about how to buy products. You already know how to do that. I'm talking about how to increase, how to improve, and then get into that kind of language. Okay, very important. But you won't do that unless you get a success story. And I hope that in most cases, you are part of that success story. Okay, very, very important that you're part of that success story. Sometimes you will be, sometimes you won't be. Just make sure that your staff understand that you have great stories for them to go to market and tell, because they can't lie and they can't just make up stuff. They have to have an interesting story. So that brings me to the final point. I said I know it was fine, but this is really a different topic altogether, but I thought one that you may be interested in. Many years ago, I was a speaker at a conference, and I was also the MC. And at lunchtime, they had a comedian performing for the people there. And I didn't have time to see him because I was getting organized for the afternoon sessions and all that kind of thing. And at the afternoon break, he was still there and he came to see me. And he said, John, is it okay for me to have a talk with you? And I said, sure. He said, now, I noticed that you use comedy in your presentations. I said, yeah, of course I do. I think the people, the audience, deserve to enjoy themselves while they're there. Otherwise, why would they be there? So I aim at them the best possible messages that I can think of that I think will help them. And I simply involve a little bit of humor here and there. I don't say things like, oh, by the way, did you hear the one about? I don't mean that. I use the humor and connect it to the stories and one thing and another. And he said, oh, okay, fine. And he asked me about, you know, how did I get involved in comedy? And I said, oh, I've been doing it for years. I mean, I was, as a young man, I was doing it. I used to tell my friends jokes. Everybody that I knew, I used to tell jokes. I've always loved telling jokes. And I said I was on a program in Sydney called Search for a Star. And they used to have, I think, 7 or 8 acts on every week. And as I think I've mentioned before, you know, occasionally they'd have a comedian on. And my wife would say to me, you could do better than that. And so, without telling me, she sent off to Channel 10 in Sydney some paperwork that they had put in the newspaper about if you want to audition for Search for a Star. I then get the answer back from Channel 10 saying, this is the date that you have to come in. I said to my wife, what the hell is this? She told me. So I decided I would go ahead with it. So I arrived at the studio wearing my general suit, sales management suit. I was only 24 at the time, I think. I was a sales manager for a company called Reckitt & Coleman. And I get there, everyone's dressed in what you might call entertainment gear, except for me. People are playing guitars and trumpets and very professional, the way they behaved and everything else. And here am I with a piece of paper with some jokes written on it. So I felt really bad. And in fact, I wanted to leave, but somebody came out and called my name. I went through my audition. Apparently that went okay. And then I was on the next show. And I won the next show. I actually came first, which was great. Then I got knocked out in the quarterfinals. I missed it just by 1 place. But which, you know, I was sad about, but there again, I lost and that was it. But then one of the groups or something fell out. They disbanded and they brought me back in. So I won the semifinal. This is what I'm telling this comedian. And I came second in the grand final, which I was very proud of. And then I was asked to do some comedy around the clubs in Sydney, but I didn't like it, watching people drink and get drunk and one thing and another. But having learned how to go in front of an audience at that age with my stories and so forth was very good for me. And I decided not to go into comedy. I got out of comedy, and then I went into sales management, then into national sales management a couple of years later. And so I just told him about all this. And he said, well, in my particular case, I'm just not getting bookings. And I said, well, why? And he said, I don't know. I'm just not getting the bookings. He said, so what I've decided to do, and I just wanted to get your opinion on it, is I'm hiring a business coach to help me to plan, success in the future. I said, well, it's up to you, and I hope it works. He said, yeah, I do too. And he said, do you have an opportunity, perhaps at some point, if I give you a tape of mine to listen to it and give me your thoughts on how I perform? And I said, yeah, sure, if you like. So he gave me the tape, I played it, and it was dreadful. It was absolutely dreadful. And, he was a rank amateur. And he didn't know that, and he didn't want to be. He got paid very, very little for what he did, which was understandable. And, it's very hard to tell someone about that. But I did tell him. And I said, first of all, forget the business coach. Okay, they're into figures and plans and what have you. That's not your problem. Your problem is having the right persona as a comedian. Okay, having the right persona, number one. Let me give you an example. The show starts, they introduce you, and you come out, and you're exasperated in some way, and you talk to the audience about a taxi situation, an incident that's just happened, or a problem that you had with your wife, all of which are lies, of course. And your persona matches the stories that you're telling. And then you move on to the next phase of jokes and what have you, and your persona, again, matches the jokes, and so forth and so on. And I said, what you have to learn to do is get good material, okay, and learn how to tell the jokes better, okay? So in order to help him, I gave him a copy of a film that I did in Sydney. I actually don't remember when it was. It was probably 10, maybe 15 years ago. And I was invited to be the guest speaker at an after-dinner presentation in Sydney. And Simon and I discussed it, and we thought you might like to see just 6 minutes of me performing that evening in front of a fairly large audience, which is always nerve-wracking. Well, it was for me. But you got to be prepared and what have you. And I gave him this film clip, 6-minute film clip, and hope you enjoy it. And this is me, therefore, at the after-dinner presentation, doing my bit as far as comedy is concerned. And I gave this to the comedian in order to help him understand about persona and the nature of jokes and so forth and so on. So goodbye for now. See you next week. We'll have more to talk about, more to do. Thanks again, Simon. And I hope you enjoy this particular session featuring myself telling jokes. How are we doing, Simon? You seem to have frozen.
Hey, John, I'm going to play the clip now, but please hang around because I have one story to share at the end of this that I think you'll like. So just hang around till the end of the clip, everyone. I have one story that'll relate to today that I think you'll all appreciate. Anyway, here we go. I'm going to add it to the stream, and hopefully this all goes nice and smoothly. So bear Hey guys, just jumping back in. We've had a little bit of a problem with the streaming of the video, and so I'm just putting a stop to that now. John and I'll send you guys a link to that, and I'll drop a link in the comments on LinkedIn. So I do apologize about that. There has been some breakup on my internet during today's show, so yeah, I do apologize for that. But John and I, I'll drop the link to that in the comments below, and I'll make sure it's there for you guys to all see that. And yeah, I apologize that 4 or 5 minutes didn't run nice and smoothly, but you definitely will enjoy that presentation. So apologies on that, John, and then I'm going to share my story with you. Yes. So John, the story that I want to share with you, can you hear me? Have you got, I know I've had a few problems with technical problems today, but just want to make sure you can hear me.
I can hear you now, yeah. You keep breaking up, unfortunately.
Okay, so John, you'd the part out of today's show about salt and taking a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. So look, a friend of mine used to sell vacuum cleaners, and he was struggling to get a lot of sales, and there was new housing development getting built nearby. And, you know, he had one of those general managers who was, listen, just get out there and get it. I don't care how you do it. Just go and do it. So he had to come up with the strategy that he thought would work. So he went into the new housing development, and basically, you know, he walked up to the first house. The lady opened the door. He had his vacuum cleaner with him, and he had a bag of horse droppings. He threw them in the front door. And he said to the lady, if this vacuum cleaner doesn't pick up those horse droppings, I'll eat it. She looked at him and said, do you want tomato sauce with that? Because we don't have the power on yet. So, you know, not every method's always going to work. So I'm taking it you don't, you're not suggesting that when you go in a sales meeting, go and spread a whole bunch of salt around, but certainly, you know, you can't lead a horse to water unless you put some salt in it. I mean, you can't make them drink unless you put some salt in it. So, yeah, the guy with the vacuum cleaners, I think he needed a better strategy too.
Very good. Okay, so are we finished now or what?
Yeah, I think we're finished. So, guys, we're going to wrap it up there. And again, apologies just on that link. I'll make sure I drop that in the comments for you all so you can see that. And, yeah, we'll be back next week with episode number 20, John. So I know how long it must have taken you to write, you know, the 13, but, yeah, I really appreciate that you've taken the time to get us up to episode number 20 next Thursday. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode. And as always, please stay safe wherever you are. And if you like the show and you're watching it on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe, hit the notification button. And John and I will see you next Thursday.